Welcome to Out of Home Insider. Today's episode is brought to you by LED Truck Media. LED Truck Media specializes in hyper-local, street-level campaigns that get your message in front of the right people. Whether your campaign is 1 day or 1 month, with nationwide coverage, your campaign can be live in any major market within 24 hours. If you want to reach your perfect audience in a truly engaging way, visit ledtruckmedia.com. LED Truck Media, out-of-home advertising 2.0. Thanks again for making today's show possible. All right, gentlemen, let's do this. Folks, with me today are Jonathan Gudai, who you know from being here on the show. He's the CEO of Adomni, and a new face, Rob Anders. Rob's the CEO of Neo Art, and together with Uber, they're doing some pretty cool stuff that we're going to talk about here today. Gentlemen, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. So, Jonathan, why don't you introduce Rob to the audience and talk to us a little bit about what's going on with you guys today?
Absolutely. Happy to. So Adomni, Neo, and Uber came together a few months ago with an idea of bringing digital artwork to the tops of this new ad network that Uber is about to roll out next month. And really the idea was we want to capture attention. And so that's always what marketers are after, putting ads in front of people and having as much of those eyeballs focus on the screens. But there was also this idea of, can we do so where it's not purely about ads? And can we provide, another dimension to the value these screens bring to the local communities? And so I had actually met Rob through some partners that we have that have utilized their screens in other locations that are not out of home. And so really the conversation kind of started there of like maybe bringing Rob's amazing platform and artist community to the tops of Ubers, and then really thinking about not just Ubers, but just the out-of-home world in general, how we can deliver a really amazing consumer experience that's not purely about ads.
No, it's pretty cool, and it's beautiful stuff. Rob, tell us a little bit about Neo Art and what it is that your community does.
Okay, so I think probably the best way to explain it for a broad audience is that if you think the last 10 or 15 years has seen every major content sector go digital, books, TV, film, music, and it's led to these previously unknown platforms becoming these billion-dollar unicorns that are Spotify and Netflix and Kindle. And pretty much the same thing is happening to art. Artists will always tell a story of the world we live in. They'll always use whatever tools they have to create and tell their story. And for that reason, there's more accessibility than ever before to creating digital format work, photography, moving image video, AR, VR. And with that said, what there was lacking was this unified platform, which essentially enables this content on the one side to kind of support and empower the community. Currently, we're around about 6,500 artists and galleries from 60 countries, and provide a very robust platform which delivers that content to then be displayed on any screen. So I guess you could say that on the one side, there's similarities from a technical standpoint to the whole signage world, but at the same time, look at this as becoming the Spotify of art and enabling, according to different business models, whether it's a business customer and business audience or a consumer at home, the ability to turn screens into, I guess, meaningful canvases of inspiration, whether they remain only for the purpose of art, or as in this case, integrated in a very smart way alongside promotional information or advertising, so that you actually break up the noise, so to speak, with something a bit more meaningful.
And Rob, you're kind of the perfect guy to do it, right? Because your background, you come from a digital signage background, correct?
So I came from a display technology background. I was running one of the leading display technology companies in Europe. So I saw the evolution of the signage market. And I was very involved in bringing these large form factor screens into public areas. For me personally, as someone that's been building high-tech companies for many years, I had an issue with the content. We were putting screens everywhere. It used to be you could close your computer or your phone and you're in the real world. And now you close it and you're being bombarded with information, with advertising, which is important because I'm a realist and it's information. But I think that the content really is king. And therefore, we thought that we could bring all of this together and enable some of those screens to not always be demonstrating or showcasing information, but also an experience which is more meaningful. And especially now, anyway, we were thinking this at a time when the net was meant to bring us all together and often has alienated people. We don't know what's real and what's not. Kids are walking around with screens in front of their face. But now, even more so during COVID, there's this kind of responsibility from entrepreneurs, I think, to bring people a meaningful moment just to stop, reflect, let it in, and then your mind's open and fresh for the next thing you're going to see. So, I understand the industry and kind of sidestepped, and it's good to be working with people like Jonathan and others because we do speak the same language, and that's what's going to enable this whole thing to take off and ultimately good business and billions of people to be inspired around the world.
Absolutely. And it is inspiring and it's beautiful. And we're going to share a clip here in just a second. So everybody on the YouTube side, you're going to be able to see it. And if you're listening, make sure to go back and check out the YouTube side, and we'll link out to it in the show notes below for your convenience. But 6,500 artists around the world, how do you go about deciding on what content goes on which screens and which networks? What's that process look like?
So I think the first thing is, until now, we've been very limited in which artists we allow into the platform. We really started high end with the most reputable artists in the world, but in a few months' time, we will be opening up. And on the back end of Neo is actually a very, very comprehensive management and publishing platform, which enables those artists to both upload and manage their files in the master files, uncompressed, huge terabytes of files, and then all the rendering is done on our platform. And at the same time, they're issuing all the rights. So this is what gives us access to the content, which can, according to the rules and approvals of the artist, be shown in a regular 16:9 format, or can be re-rendered with their approval, such as on the unique form factor, on top of the Uber cars, or, we're speaking with Adomni about other large screen signage out of home, the large LEDs, which also use, unusual aspect ratios. So that's one side, technically an artist. Obviously, when the artists are publishing the work, we're also aggregating huge amounts of curatorial and metadata. So we know everything about these works, genres, categories, themes. And we also use AI at the core of our platform to learn the trends between what type of artworks are consumed in what type of location. So we know that in Hong Kong, the type of work that people want to see is very different to what you would see in New York. So for that reason, the selection process is a combination of both, machine learned data, but at the same time, a curatorial aspect where we're bringing in, and we have around 60 curators that work on the platform to actually select for the particular program and for the particular audience. With Uber, we're talking about, inspiring people in the city. You have to be very, very thoughtful of how you create a context which respects the art and respects the artist, but at the same time can provide an experience in a short period of time, which will actually resonate with a very broad audience and not just a sophisticated art collector who's walking into a museum.
So it really sounds like you're becoming part of the natural culture landscape of the cities and markets that you're in. Would that be a fair summation?
I think that, again, the impact of COVID is the art world is often, and the world of culture, which is very scary for some people, even though it's become cliche art for the masses. I think that the ground was shaking under their feet anyway. And with COVID, you've seen this massive, immediate, instant digital transformation as you're seeing in other industries. And at the same time, there was also a trend already from art going out of the galleries and museums into public spaces, lobbies of buildings, corporate locations. So it's all been changing. And I think from our perspective, the need and desire to reach the broadest audience is actually a contribution to the whole future of how art and culture is going to be experienced, in the future. And public art is always being critical. A lot of cities around the world, both in America and Europe, are now mandating that on digital billboards, a percentage of the time has to be used for digital art. If you build a new building, 3% has to be focused on art. So there is a driver there. And what we're doing is that platform, which is unifying the community on the content side, the tech to deliver and distribute it, and then the different business models to make it, a financial solution which works for everyone.
Awesome. Well, let's take a look at it. I'm going to bring the clip up now. Again, if you're on YouTube, definitely want to see this. If you're listening, you've got some cool jams for the next few seconds here. I will cue this up and we'll press play. Very cool stuff. So Atlanta, Dallas, and Phoenix are the first to roll out. Jonathan, talk to me about what the rollout is going to look like. Where can people expect to see it in the cities and times and things like that?
Sure. So October 1st is sort of our grand launch of Uber-U. And there's 1,000 total vehicles with these double-sided, 40-inch wide screens in Atlanta, Dallas, and Phoenix. And we actually did already launch the Neo artwork just recently on those screens. So even today, before kind of pre-launch, soft launch, that's out there. We're expanding. We'll be announcing the official next cities very soon. But you can expect from this particular list, Los Angeles, Chicago, Miami, San Francisco, and there's about a dozen others in the US. And what's really interesting about Uber and with Neo is that it's a global marketplace. Uber's in literally 10,000 cities. So, our hopes are to not just kind of be able to touch the lives of these people in these three cities, but really make it a global thing. And going back to what Rob was saying about the impact of this, and the importance of this, I mean, certainly COVID is got people in a different kind of mental space than normal. And in some ways, we're craving just positive, inspirational things to offset the negative things that are going on the other side. And so for us, just the ability to deliver that, right? Where this particular partnership is so beautiful because it benefits, the communities that are seeing these vehicles driving around. It benefits the artists who all of a sudden have this massive canvas, that reaches millions and millions of people. And then ultimately advertisers, right? Where, what we were talking about before, but it's all about attention, right? Attention is what drives results, and how it's been harder than ever, especially now with all the fragmentation of where we give our attention, that this enables that ad recall, and ultimately someone seeing, a beautiful piece of art, and then an ad, will drive that kind of that message through to actually have someone take action on it. So from that perspective, it's just really exciting to see kind of how this can grow and prosper. And even though at Domni, we've got over 200,000 screens and 1,000 of those are on Ubers, this application can really apply for the whole world of out of home. And we've seen this, Tim, like in the past, where billboard companies will say, okay, I'm going to put up some weather, or I'm going to put some sports scores. It's not going to be just ad. We want to get people to not have that kind of banner blindness effect, right? That happens. And so ultimately, we'd like to bring this concept to the billboard companies, to other place-based networks who have the same kind of mission. There is some unsold space. Let's utilize that in a really positive way. And let's also, benefit our advertisers through a more sticky kind of eye candy experience.
Yeah. And I think Rob used a great analogy as we were queuing up for the show here, that it's really like a clearing of the cache. It's cleansing of the palate, because what is the value of attention of an audience if they're not really paying attention? And you shared an interesting slide, Jonathan, I want to bring up here so that we can all look at together, because it really lends itself to that. Talk to us about what this slide is and why it ultimately matters to advertisers.
Sure. So the DPAA put out a media planner survey where they asked buyers and planners of advertising a series of questions. And one of them was, would you prefer a network that had a combination of ads and content, whether it's sports, news, weather, entertainment? We can now add art to that, / or would you rather just stick with just the kind of the pure play ad only networks? And interestingly, 4 times people said, I would want to have a combination of ads and meaningful content than just purely ads alone. And so the buyers are saying they want this. It's kind of been shown that that ad recall goes up. So the consumers want this, and it's really just a matter of like what has been stopping something like this from happening.
Sure.
And I think programmatic technology, where we have the ability to drop in different artworks into feeds that are going onto screens, is one pretty powerful force. Media owners just saying this is a priority for us. Like we want to take some combination of ads and content, and then companies like Rob, right, who have the content, saying let's find ways to make this connectable to your world. And all three of those things are definitely bubbling up right now.
Let me come in there as well. One of the things which is interesting is that it's like the whole Henry Ford. If you said what do you want, people would say a faster horse. People only know what they know.
Right.
So when they talk about that mixture of content, the natural place people go to is information rather than advertising. Okay, and I would argue, and I think we'll do some tests here. That think how many locations you walk into and you still see Bloomberg or something on the screen. Yeah. Okay. And that itself, in my mind, equally equates to banner blindness. Sometimes it's more information which is kind of like just pulling us. And I think that what's going to be interesting to test is if the nature of the content is more meditative, reflectful thinking, and it does have the impact of cleaning the cache, because I wouldn't necessarily suggest that the weather or everything else cleans your cache. It's just giving you more information. It's interesting to test if I do actually find that I'm psychologically calmer after watching a few seconds of this. Does it then open my mind and make me more susceptible to be able to watch the advertising that's coming? And I think the other thing, therefore, is that, which is interesting, which we're discussing with Jonathan, is, the world of luxury has often associated itself with art for many years. I think that there's a number of brands, including brands that look at out of home as a medium, that sometimes just by sponsoring or being associated, so moving away from a traditional ad. But we did, for example, in Hong Kong on out of home, on huge outdoor LEDs. So you've got the adverts and the McDonald's and all this, that, and the other. And then we had to think, how do we change the context so that this becomes an art moment? And so it was the same time every day for an hour for 5 minutes, and the screen would go black, and then it would say art moment brought to you by, in this case, the company that was sponsoring, maybe LED Truck or one of the other guys. Okay. And then you would go and have 5 minutes of art. So you've got your business model from sponsoring. It's a different type of business model. And because it's defined as a program at a certain time, you actually then start getting people will come at that particular time, kind of because they know the art show, or in a shopping mall, let's meet at the cafe at 12 o'clock because we can watch the art and then we can go shopping. And I think these are some of the things where, especially because Adomni is so data driven in terms of the way that they evaluate their different programs, why I think that this is a good match. It's format, it's context, it's business model, and educating that this isn't just another chapter of content, but it's in some ways a standalone category that perhaps will have an interesting impact on the industry.
Right. I'm sure the social sharing component just of it being art. We see the big angel wings, right, in Nashville, people stand in front of it and they take a picture. I'm sure that there's an enormous social component to putting art in front of people. Have you seen any of that feedback yet?
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, we always knew that for us, our vision was to reach people everywhere. And therefore for us, I want to rid the world of black screens. You think how many people have a large flat screen, in their living room at home. And it's either on when you're watching something and Netflix or whatever, or it then goes off. And people kind of forget the fact they get used to this big black hole on their wall. And so we want you to use your TV. It's either on, okay, or it's off, or it's in art mode. And that means reaching the consumers. And we were planning on entering the consumer market at the end of next year. But again, because of COVID, the true Spotify of art, which will enable you with a social layer to share artwork. So you go around to your friend's house, you can take out your mobile and AirPlay an artwork onto the screen in the same way as that people connect their speaker to the music.
Yeah,
is a big part of this whole experience. And it's holistic. You've got music, you're having a drink, all of a sudden now the screen becomes a canvas. And what's very interesting for us again with Uber is using the two as a bridge. So when we start rolling this out, you like this experience, you can now take it home with you. And that in itself can provide business models. The ad guys can be behind that and they get a kickback. So So the ability to have a platform which addresses the out of home or the business community, but can then be taken home with you, either because it's a conversion or it's courteous of this brand. This is being sponsored this month by Gucci, take it home for 1 month courteous of us. And then you have all the stats, how many people engaged, took it home. And then all of a sudden you're in people's real estate in their house with the brand, and that's where this stuff goes really, really powerful.
And there's two big things there that I wanted to touch upon because I think personally they're really powerful. One is that the element of discovery, so in the advertising world, a big part of out-of-home's value proposition is that you enable consumers to discover things through these ads, right? Like you're sitting at a stoplight, there's a large format roadside billboard, or there's an Uber next to you, and there's a new TV show that just launched, or there's a new menu item at your local fast food location. You didn't know about that, and you have the ability to kind of discover those things, and then that's what drives the behavior. And really, out of home is kind of lived in this. It's kind of, you've got your digital and online, you got your television, and then and then you got out of home. But what we're trying to do with Adomni, just in general, I think as an industry, is really do that bridging where they saw the ad on that digital billboard or Uber topper, then they went home and on their mobile phone or on their laptop, they went and bought it, if it's an online product, or they went to the store and did that. But the same sort of thing also applies to discovery of art, and when Rob's platform is ready for that B2C moment with some of the stuff that they've been doing with Samsung and some really cool stuff, you can see this art that's kind of playing on the tops of the Uber and say, I love that. I want that. I'm happy to see this every day as I'm driving around my city, but I want that instead of the black screen. And so that discovery, I think, is really powerful. And then the ability to kind of bring it into the home where it's not just about what you see on the outside world, but connecting to what you're doing when you are home. I think those are two very, very powerful things.
Also with the social element, like the virality comes from, Jonathan can take it home, but he can also by WhatsApp send it to you, and then a minute later it's on your screen at home, and you can start seeing. And as Jonathan said, with references to Samsung and inside and outside, what we've done is taken an ecosystem and infrastructure approach, whereby we don't get involved with the creation of the content, but we've built in place a platform of technology and business models and smart contracts and commerce and engine to enable this to essentially reach any screen in the world, with layers of social, with layers of community, with layers of virality, with business models. And this is why it's a medium of culture, which has the ability to truly, enrich the lives, of everyone. And what I like also about Uber, by the way, one other thing, sorry, Jonathan, is Jonathan mentioned that Uber in 10,000 cities. One of the things we love is that in a world where the internet was meant to bring us together and there's so much diversity, the idea that localized, we can have art from the local area shown on those local cars, but we can then switch it around. So today we're going to be featuring from Ubers from Paris in America, and you're basically plugging people into this network or this movement or this framework of inspiration, and you can play around with it at the click of a button. And that's when this thing kind of, alongside all of our qualms and challenges of politics and global this, that, and the other, like we've got our own thing going on over here, and it's something a bit more meaningful.
No, that's very cool. So I'm sold, because the first time I saw the video, the immediate thought I had was, wow, that's a beautiful piece of UFC art. And it didn't register. Wait, that's the UFC ad. It made everything else on the display just look a little bit more beautiful. So I'm sold. The data obviously backs it up. Talk to me about the economics. All these things cost money, and people have to get paid. Who is it? The media owner that signs up with this program? How's it all work?
So, Jonathan, you want to take that, or shall I? You
go ahead, Rob.
Okay. So, in general, the people who are putting the ads onto the it can work differently. You either have people who are managing the network that understand that by investing not just in hardware but investing in some of this content uplifts and differentiates their network, makes it more prestigious. Again, if I go back to Asia, some of the large buildings have these renowned immersive experiences at different times in the day, and then before and afterwards it's really prime real estate. So sometimes it can be the media guys who own the network. In other cases, it's the brands themselves that are saying, okay, should my advert be a regular 8-second, commercial of some type, shape, or form. And you know better than I do the conversations over the last 10 years over the best, most impactful digital signage content type of thing. And some of those companies now are the ones saying, I actually want to be the sponsor, and therefore their ad time will actually be them paying for the art because they want to associate it directly with their brand. So there's some flexibility there. I think the final thing I would say is, for us, empowering artists and showcasing them to the world is a very big part of our mission. So obviously, there's a lion's share of the revenue generated that goes back to the artists, and where that becomes very important, whether it's the likes of the operators, whether it's Uber or others, is that we live in a world today where impact and brand positioning and credibility, your contribution to society is questioned, and we know some of the big brands out there, they have reputations which sometimes they need to do some work on. And I think it's generally understood, and we see this with real estate developers who are putting signage in their buildings, that the moment that they're supporting these type of programs, they are making a communication that we are supporting we're supporting inspiration, we're supporting creativity, we're supporting the arts to enrich and inspire audiences in public spaces. And so, everyone can benefit, and that's why it's important that money goes through to the artists.
No, I think it's great. It's really a positive sum game for everyone. If I'm a brand and I want to pick specific types of art to feature in and around my actual advertising, do I have that autonomy?
Yeah, I mean, listen, what you usually find is that when we're working with, let's say, some of our customers like Virgin or Hilton's or the Marriotts, when you're working on deals where there's going to be very broad exposure, hundreds of hotels and so forth, usually the brand wants to control the decision, and they don't really want to go through 13,000 artworks. What they usually will prefer is some type of curatorial assistance where we will listen and learn from them, and then we will propose collections of art and they will choose. And that's usually been the most successful approach. With that said, when you start moving to a consumer type of self-service offering, then the expectation for people is that, hey, I can go into a homepage in the discovery area by genres, by categories, or it will choose things for me based on my personalization and my own taste that the system has learned. So we can pretty much work on both ways. But we've experienced that whilst people like choice, just generally as humans, it's like, I want to make sure I've got choice. And once you tell them, they say, right, what should I put on the screen? I think that having the balance of both is going to be important for this to take off.
And for our particular use case with Uber, as Rob mentioned, they've got tens of thousands of artwork pieces. So it will be consistently, being refreshed, and ultimately that on a week by week basis, you're going to constantly be exposed to different artists and also the artworks. And that library that Neo has curated, I mean, it's growing like crazy, but it's also really deep, So some brands might favor, a unicorn walking past the TSA check-in, gate, which is one of my favorites. It's just so captivating. And others might be more of like what's on the back of Rob's, right wall right there. It's more of that abstract kind of paintbrush, kind of thing. So that gamut is really wide, and the actual quantity of art is very deep, which is a big part of why we chose Neo. Is we know they've got everything.
So first of all, I brought the unicorn back for you because I know you have a very positive association going through the Apple Store. I think what Jonathan says is right. For us, when we're trying to be a bridge between the traditional art world and reach the broadest audience, that curatorial strategy is very important because there is so much difference between a sophisticated art collector who is looking for a pretty edgy piece of a very abstract or conceptual art, as opposed to something which is going to attract people in an environment where you have very short periods of time. The aesthetic approach, the aesthetic side of it needs to be considered. Art, when it comes to content that can offend people, obviously it's very difficult with art because whether it's politics, whether it's sexual related stuff, you go into a museum and you see everything. If you're going out onto the streets, all of these different things need to be well considered. And then you need to make sure you have artworks that the artists will approve for the work to then be re-rendered because you can imagine the resolutions and the aspect ratio of the Uber screens or a lot of the other screens are usually unique. So there's a lot of work that needs to go into it, but ultimately, I think that we've done a good job to start, and part of this is going to be refining as we go along.
Absolutely. I'm already looking forward to the follow-up episode a year from now when we see all of this in 10,000 cities around the world and really bringing people together. So this has been awesome, Rob, Jonathan. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Rob, where can people go to find out more about Neo and everything that you guys do?
So you guys can all go out to www.neo.com. And as we said, we'll be launching for homes at the end of next month. And so, as I say, watch this space, and no doubt people will be hearing from us real soon.
Absolutely. And Jonathan, if they want to check out the project with Uber, what's the best place to learn more about that?
That's uberoo.com/art.
Easy enough. We'll make sure to link to both of those things in the show notes, in the comments, description below. If you found this to be helpful, interesting, engaging, please share it with somebody else that you think could benefit. And as always, we'll see you guys next time.